Good morning, everyone. I know we're doing things a little early, and I've messed up my computer here. Here we go. There we go. Um, Unfortunately, a few things happened this week, and I had to make some changes to the plans for the next couple weeks. So, um, quick update: next Sunday, I will not be here. Again, things have happened beyond my control. I will not be here next Sunday, and I won't be here the weekend of the 30th. So the following Sunday, because I will be getting back from the um Oregon Bigfoot Festival. So I will not be there that Sunday either. However, as a compensation, next Saturday, we will do a hangout. We'll get together and do a lot of the Hebrews that we just haven't done the last 2 weeks, and I'll see if we can't maybe wrap it up a little bit. Um, and do like a longer cast. Um, so like I said, unfortunately, the July is a crazy month. It has been. August things should calm down. However, I think August is also going to bring either. I can't say much right now. What I can say is either the very end of July or the beginning of August, I will be making several announcements. Um, so there are some rather large changes coming. Not to this channel per se at all. Like, this channel is what it is. I like it the way it is. I don't want it to grow. And Sundays, it's always going to be here. Um, However, uh, other changes are coming. That's all I can say for now. But I think y'all will like the changes. That's all I'm going to say. Um, there's going to be an aspect of it that probably will not be loved, however, will be understood. So, again, all good things for me, good things for the other channels, and things like in shows. So, don't worry about it. So, like I said, nothing bad. Everything's good. I just can't announce anything yet until it happens, right? Um, So, but again, good thing. So the next 2 Sundays, I will not be here. I will be out of town and doing other things. Um, However, next Saturday we're going to do like a long hangout. I'm going to see if we can't wrap up Hebrews. Probably won't, because let's face it, I get distracted by shiny things. So, but if we can wrap up Hebrews, we will wrap up Hebrews, and then when we get back in August, we'll start going back through and start doing book reports on the Apocrypha, right, and kind of go through those, and then we're setting up for other things. So a lot of the topics that are going to be like revelations and things like that. I'm gonna start doing some more presentations on those on Siru for the time being, because I think those should be heard, but they may not always go live. They may be pre-recorded things. So, just a heads up on that. I think that's pretty much all the news. Oh, yes, Florence. Oh, excellent. I imagine it is quite warm there. Yeah, I mean it's the right time for it. Um, yes, we need to keep Alan in our prayers. He's having some medical issues with his eyes right now. Um, so if we can keep him in prayer, it would be greatly appreciated. And again, if you have $5, $10, whatever, send it to me. I will get it to him at the end of the month. Again, those $5 or $10 can mean a heck of a lot more to him. But let's keep him in prayer, because obviously he's having some medical issues, but also all of the things that are affecting us are hitting them way harder, right? We have to remember that a lot of Africa gets their food from Ukraine, and it's not just that their food comes from Ukraine, because that Ukrainian grain is not right going out. That means grain and other food goods from other nations are being bought up. So essentially, the poor nations are the ones that go without the food, so they're not getting the same shipments, And of course, their costs are going up, and they're the ones who can least afford it. So you can understand how bad things are going to get in the third world right now. And will continue to get, like, if things, like, please understand, if things are bad here, they are devastating everywhere else. They just are. America will not see, unless there is some sort of catastrophic event, America will not see the same kind of pain and suffering a lot of these other nations are going to see, because we are remarkably wealthy. We have, we can afford to pay for other goods to be shipped here. We have the infrastructure for it. Again, it's going to get bad here, but we're not going to see mass starvation. These other nations will see mass starvation. In fact, there's already mass starvation due to, when they did the whole COVID thing, we've already seen mass starvation because of it. A lot of people have estimated deaths in the millions. They just don't classify them that way. However, with what's happening, it's going to get even worse. So let's definitely keep not just Kenya, but obviously other third world nations in prayer for that reason. See if God, God's going to have to perform a miracle, because it's going to get ugly real fast. I think that's all the news I have for the moment. Like I said, today I kind of wanted to do more of a hangout because it is so much earlier than what people are used to. I know most people do actually watch it recorded, but still, I'd like to, since I'm the one changing the time on this without notice, because I didn't have a lot of advance notice on today. I don't want to, change up. I don't want anyone to be able to not comment or ask questions while we do something. So we are going to continue. I'm going to try and wrap up Hebrews next Saturday. We're going to do an afternoon. I will give everyone plenty of warning as to when it goes live. We will probably even go for a couple hours. Like, we're going to just do this thing and make it happen. So just a heads up. So today's going to be more of a hangout. Again, unfortunately, it looks like it's only going to be Susan and Titan. So a lot of extemporaneous talking, just things I've noticed. But, I still wanted to meet and just let y'all know everything's fine. In fact, everything's going to be, I'm just not going to be here because, again, I had planned to be here next Sunday. Unfortunately, I just can't. Things have changed. Again, outside of my control. And then, of course, the following Sunday, I will be flying back from Oregon. So, can't do that. August, things should go back to normal. And then, like I said, probably early August, I'll be able to make my announcements, which are various and exciting. And we'll have, there will be some changes on some things. That's all I can say. Sadly, it's all I can say. There are still other people I need to talk to. Titan, at this point, I still have to make it a surprise, because not everything is necessarily finalized, and there are other people on the team I have to talk to. There are people I have talked to, and there are people I haven't talked to, and the team needs to know first, and then once other things, because there's actually two sides to this, right? So what I can say, there is a Texas front porch side to this, and there's a Ciru paper side to this. And there are two different conversations happening with two different groups of people. Obviously, the Texas front porch team. And then I know Ciru Papers isn't a team yet. But again, that I don't know how that's going to go. So there will be changes coming to Ciru. Okay, I can't say this. There will be changes coming to Ciru Papers. And there will be changes. That's all I can say. But hopefully by the time everything's in place, a lot of things, particularly with Ciru Papers, I think it's going to end up looking a lot more like what I really wanted it to be versus what it became, right? Unfortunately, sometimes we're limited and we move forward, but God does bring people, resources to you that you didn't necessarily have access to. So there's going to be some changes in that respect. And honestly, the new book I'm working on, which again is it's a to say it's a sequel to How UFOs and Bigfoot Prove the Bible is True is a misnomer. It's more of an expansion on it. It is a fleshing out, because it was really a booklet. It's a pamphlet, really. It's only like 32 pages long. But it's so this is more of it was designed to be a primer, because I do not necessarily think that I was the one anyone should be listening to. There's plenty of other good people in the industry that people should talk to. And I still believe that. However, I've come to understand that I do need to make the arguments. I'm apparently, in a situation to do that, so I'll be doing that. So that's also going to tie into a lot of what's happening. I cannot comment on that, Titan. And it may be different. It will definitely be different from what it is today. That's all I can say. And so the conference, I'm doing two things. I will be speaking. I will be making my presentation on the biblical worldview and how it correlates with the with the cryptozoological specifically and the paranormal. And so it's basically the how UFOs and Bigfoot prove the Bible is true commentary. But basically, it's focusing on the biblical worldview. What does that actually look like, and how does that allow us to understand what we are seeing in the world around us? The second part I will be doing is actually kind of emceeing one of the larger talking things. I forget what they're called. I think it's technically like a panel discussion, and so I'm going to be kind of overseeing and emceeing that and doing stuff. So just all good stuff. All good stuff. Like I said, I can't speak as to what will be happening to Siru, only that it will be changing. Ultimately for the better is all I can say. I've got another meeting. I think it's actually next week. What is today? Today's the 17th. Week after. I've got another. So, but there's plenty of other conversations to have. I don't know when the changes will be coming, but there just will be changes, and everything will make sense everything will make sense when all of the announcements happen. Everything will make sense. That's all I can say. But yeah, so that's what's happening on my end. Like I said, I don't mean to be vague. It's kind of where we need to be at the moment. Kind of the conversation that's happening right now is vague. Thank you, Susan. I am continuing to lose weight, and this evening after Danielle, I think we're going to be shaving my hair and doing the grooming. I've been letting it grow out so I can recut it and sort of get it reshaped a different way. So it'll look like I lost more weight once that happens, but I will not. But yes, I'm actually shooting for another 30 pounds by the end of August. That's my goal. 30 pounds by the end of August. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, yeah, so that's all the news I have for the day. And like I don't mean to be vague. I want to keep y'all apprised of the situations as best as possible. So I'm just letting y'all know. That's just it, right? Just giving y'all the heads up, because this is a small group, it's a small family. We're a small, contingent, and I like to keep everyone apprised as much as possible. Titan, great question. What, why the strength? Honestly, I think it's because, I think the question sort of answers itself in his actions, right? Like, because it is weird, right? It's like God gives Samson this superhuman strength, and we don't really see that anywhere else in Scripture. Like, it's not something we see other places. So it's like, well, why? Because of what he had him do, right? Samson was a one-man army, and I think if Samson had not done, if his behavior had been different, he would have lived a far more productive and healthy life. But he didn't, so it went the way it went. But he, because of, like, I think so this is the weird thing. I think the problem is we see, allow me to deviate from Samson for 2 seconds. David and Delilah. Okay, not Delilah. Bathsheba. Sorry, Delilah is Samson. David and Bathsheba. I was like, I don't remember being alliterative. Anyway, there is actually an old rabbinic teaching that Bathsheba was always meant to become David's wife so that she could bear Solomon. That was always the plan. But David's sin caused it to happen in a negative way, right? In fact, there's an interesting study we should do on that, on the whole honor culture thing, because it changes the connotations of what happened for the whole, David and Bathsheba thing. Doesn't make it better, but it changes a lot of the connotations to it. I think it's very interesting. But the point is, there's this rabbinic theory has always been he was always supposed to marry Bathsheba, but that God's plan was that David was supposed to go to war like he was supposed to. Uriah was going to die. He would have taken Bathsheba after Uriah's death, honorable death in battle, and she would have borne Solomon. Instead, David doesn't go to war. He's not doing what he isn't where he's supposed to be, doing what he was supposed to do. And therefore, it leads him into sin, and that sin creates the chain of events that we know happened. In the same way for Samson, God always intended for Samson to be a weapon of his hand to help alleviate the Philistine issue with, for Israel. He was supposed to be a weapon against them at a time really when they were the weakest militarily. That's why Samson was there. However, instead of Samson being this grand hero who's widely celebrated and lives a long life of defeating their enemies in honorable combat, he ends up his last, he ends up being blinded and enslaved and left weak. And the last act of strength he has is to kill. It even says he kills, that when he brings down the building that they're in, he kills more Philistines than he's ever killed before, right? More importantly, they would have been important. It's not just the number, it's the people, right? It's the ranking of the people that would have been present and would have died. It's not always about numbers, but organization and leadership, logistics. Again, we have to remember, military is not always about having the strongest fighters. It's having the smartest generals. It's having the best logistics. Those are things you need. And when Samson kills everyone he kills, it's not just the number that matters. It's the kind of people who get killed. So my argument would be, because Israel was in a militarily weak period, Samson was given such great strength to compensate. It's like, you're going to be the thing that goes out and basically ends up protecting Israel. And again, he's going to show his power through him. However, because Samson was a morally weak vessel, it doesn't go the way God wants it to go, but it does go ultimately the way God plans it to go. What I mean by that is, and that sounds counterintuitive, it's like, but doesn't God know what's going to happen? Yes, he does. He's outside, right, of, he's supposed to be outside of time. He is outside of time, and therefore he knows what's happening. However, God can have intentions that he knows we won't live up to, but it doesn't mean the intentions are any less valid, right? Like, I will make the argument of this. Again, not a hill I'll die on, but just a thought I have in my head. I think we were supposed to leave this planet. Like, had we never sinned, we still would have built spaceships. We would have gone to the stars. We would have explored the universe. That's the idea. I think that's one of the reasons why the universe is the way it is. It was meant for us to explore, to understand him better. That was something we were supposed to do as immortal beings, right? But we failed. Now, God knew the failure was coming, but the offer was still there anyway. In the same way, Samson had a possibility of being one thing. He fails, but that's okay. He still fulfills the ultimate plan that God had, which is the weakening of the Philistines from a military perspective. Titan, that's a great point. And I think that we can also argue that. I think that's, again, we tend to be overly literal with our interpretation of the Bible. What I mean by that is, I'm not saying that Samson didn't exist or anything like that. What I'm saying is, we have to also look at things from a literary perspective. Samson is a type and shadow of Christ in the same way. We don't think of Jesus as being a superhero, right? Because that's kind of what Samson was. And you're right, we wouldn't necessarily think of him that way. However, what does Samson do? He is a bulwark against the invading Philistines, right? Against this unstoppable enemy force. And to your point, you're right. He was a Nazarite. Jesus coming from Nazareth, being called a Nazarene. There's that connection, right? We're not 100% certain that he actually took the Nazarite vow, but there's a lot of that connection. So, as we often see with the Old Testament heroes of faith and of action, they are all types and shadows of Christ. They just fail, right? It's their failures that set them apart from Christ. Where Moses failed in the wilderness, Jesus does not. Where Joshua fails to destroy all the Nephilim and drive them out of Israel, Jesus does not. He's the new Enoch when he in First Peter talks about him descending into Tartarus to take and he takes captivity captive. He is the new, he is the higher, he is the better, he is the as I beat my microphone, he is the one, he is the Samson without the flaw. He is the Moses, but he is the higher Moses, right? That's what Hebrews is all about, is going through and saying, hey, look at all these things, right? Jesus is superior to all. He's superior to the angels. He's superior to Moses. He's superior to the high priest. His priesthood is higher than yours, right? So yeah, I think that's absolutely a valid interpretation. It is, the idea that he's a type, because I know there's some people like, oh, not everything is a type and shadow of Christ. Well, yes, you're right, but also you're wrong, because it is. It's meant to be read those connections are designed to be made. I see you saw the David. That is the PA. The David's amazing. I have yet to see it in real life. The two things I want to see. I do obviously want to go to Rome, and I want to see the David. I want to visit Italy and see those great works. I also want to go to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam to see all of the Baroque artists, Franz Hals, but Rembrandt specifically. Got a chance to see some Rembrandts when they came through Phoenix a few years ago. I say a few years ago, it's 10 plus years ago now. Loved it. I just absolutely loved it. But I also, at some point, I need to make it to, last time I checked, the Lamentation of Jeremiah, which is my favorite Rembrandt, is in the Guggenheim. So I have to go see that too. But yeah, I'd love to go and see the David in real life. I'd love to see the Pietà in real life more than anything else, really. So did the Lord form man on a planet that he imprisoned Satan on? Perhaps we were supposed to be a slap in the face of Satan, but man in such a place. Okay, can you retype that question? I'm wondering. Did the Lord form a man on a planet he imprisoned Satan on? Because I don't think Satan's actually imprisoned on a planet, right? Like, he's not imprisoned anywhere yet. That's the point. but okay. I think okay. Stop me if I'm wrong here. It sounds like you're saying, okay, so since Satan was bound to earth, like this is his prison, why put man here if Satan is bound here? So okay, I think I see what was that designed to be a slap in the face? Okay, I get what you're saying now. If that's how you meant it, just say yes. Otherwise, go a little more detail. Again, it's hard to talk about God, what God's plans are from his perspective, because he is so far outside of our existence. It's not possible for us. Okay. So let me put this preface on before I give you the rest of my argument. The reason God's ways are higher than ours, and sometimes we just have to say because that's what he wanted. I don't think that should be said for all things, but it should be said for a lot of things. We are so stuck within causality that we can't possibly imagine not causality, right? I use this metaphor. It's a clumsy metaphor to be certain, but it works. Which is, I have to make the sandwich in order to eat the sandwich. I have to buy the ingredients to make the sandwich to eat the sandwich. God is not required to do that. He can eat the sandwich, make the sandwich. I'm just beating my poor microphone here. He can eat the sandwich, make the sandwich, and then buy the ingredients for the sandwich. It's a clumsy metaphor, but the point is he's so far beyond time and space, he interacts with it in such a way that it's beyond our ability to comprehend. I would even suggest all right, I'll say it this way. I'm actually going to do something on Serial Papers on the Mandela effect and the scriptures specifically because I was talking to Jessica, and she said, hey, because I'd seen a couple things on this as well, but they asked me this. She was getting questions on another section of scripture, and I'm like, okay, I need to do something because this is getting out of hand. The vast majority of the Mandela effect, or the things presented as Mandela effects, are absolutely just people with bad memories. Like, and I'll use this. I'm going to do a video on it, so I don't need to go into the full detail. But like when people say "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" Right? They think they're quoting the Disney version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That is an incorrect quotation. The correct quotation is "Magic mirror on the wall." The problem is the zeitgeist, the thing that is popularized as a parlance, right, as a conversation piece, is "Mirror, mirror." That's not what the film says. Same thing, Darth Vader, right? He never says, Luke, I am your father. That is not the quote, but it is what gets popularized. Okay, those are two different things. Also, no one in the history of the world dedicated themselves to understanding or remembering how to spell Berenstain Bears. I'm sorry, nobody ever did, and that's just how it goes, right? The problem is human memory is very, very fallible in a lot of ways. So the vast majority of what we would call Mandela effects are just people with bad memory, or it's just our memory isn't what we think it is. It's not a videotape that we replay. We've all had encounters with people who remember things differently, and we're like, "Are you high? That never happened." Or that happened to me, it didn't happen to you. Like, we've all had those conversations. It's the same thing. However, there are some Mandela effects that I think are real, or potentially real. I'll phrase it that way, potentially real. There's some weird time anomalies that do seem to occur from time to time. I don't think CERN has anything to do with it. I would stipulate that it's entirely possible that if there are real Mandela effects, if there are real time abnormalities, that's God in real time. For him, it's real time. For us, we're in causality. making those alterations. Again, not a hill I'm going to die on, but if such a thing as the Mandela effect is real, then what we are seeing is God rebooting, sort of resetting something, because that's how he wants it. It's happening we have to remember, for him, he's doing it in real time. It's just so far beyond our perception of time and space that we couldn't understand it. So this whole preface is, we do not understand how God thinks. And one of the big flaws that the church has is we try to create a scheme, a paradigm for how God approaches things without stopping and say, hey, guys, stop. There are things we can know about God and how he thinks and what he wants. True. But you're never going to understand how he perceives things. You can't. So all of that is to preface the response to, why would God confine? Here's the thing. Satan's not bound yet. That happens. It's okay, Brunson. I had to change the time. I had to, as I mentioned at the beginning, I had to change the time today because things happened beyond my control. I won't be in next Sunday. I was planning, okay, so the Sunday of the 30th, I'm returning from the Oregon Bigfoot Festival, so I won't be there then. But I was planning to be here next Sunday. I can't even be here next Sunday. So we're gonna do a Saturday thing. I'm gonna plan it well in advance. I'll put it up for everyone to see. But unfortunately, this July is so crazy and hectic, everything got out of hand. So anyway, so it's perfectly okay, Brunson. Believe me, perfectly okay. So Titan, here's the thing. Satan is cast to earth and bound to earth midway through the Revelation, or through the 7-year period. That's when that happens, right? So he's not bound to earth yet. He just isn't. He can go anywhere he wants. Again, we don't even understand how angels travel. Let me throw that out there. Everyone's like, oh, well, you don't know how they move. You don't know where they go, how they operate. It's entirely possible. There's a moon called Iapetus. I've mentioned this before on one of their shows. The moon of Iapetus, it's one of Saturn's moons. It looks artificially made. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'm not saying it is, but I wouldn't be surprised if Satan and his angels needing a place to rest, maybe even some Nephilim needing a place to rest, constructed it around Saturn, because Saturn seems to be the star of Satan in my work on the 2017 alignment. It would not surprise me to find out, again, I'm not saying that that's what it is, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out that it is artificial, that the angels rest, that these fallen angels rest there because their place was removed, right? They're not, some of these angels aren't doing what God wants them to do. So he would have taken some of their access to whatever supernatural technology they would have. Again, we tend to operate as if angels, the idea of angels having wings is flawed, right? The angels that do have wings, they're not using them really to fly. Those are the cherubim, the seraphim, same thing. The rest of the angels, they have chariots of fire. They have things that they motivate on. They have vehicles. That shouldn't surprise us. We're only made a little lower than the angels, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that were the case. Now, that having been said, Satan's not bound to earth yet. That happens much later. Why? Now, we have to remember the Satan in Job is more than likely not the Satan we think of. Okay? I'm not even inherently saying he's not. I'm not saying this is where things get complicated, right? Because a lot of people have sort of, this is one of those big gotchas that atheists like to use in college, right? Where it's like, well, the Satan of the book of Job is an angel who is in good standing with God because he's just he's playing the role of the prosecutor. He's not the overall bad guy that he is in the New Testament. It's one of those, well, actually, people, right? Here's the thing. Yes, that's true. Most rabbinic scholars will tell you the term Satan is not a proper name. It is a title. It just means adversary. The Satan that is found in the book of Job may not be the Satan we think of, right? It's just that's the adversary. By the Second Temple period, though, the title of the adversary does exclusively mean the devil, right? He is the serpent in the Garden of Eden. He is the adversary. So that's something we need to remember. It is now. I still think it's entirely possible that the adversary of Job is the great adversary. He is the serpent from the Garden of Eden. That he is simply he's not necessarily fulfilling his role as a role as prosecutor. Rather, that he is just being a jerk, right? He's the accuser of the brethren. So I have no problem believing that is still the same Satan, and the fact that he has access to God is not unreasonable given what we see in the book of Revelation. A lot of people misunderstand Revelation 12, right? It was, well, okay, so Titan, let me come to that because there's a connection there. And I think this is why I do think there are multiple Satans throughout Scripture. And I'll expand on this idea. Revelation 12 happens in the future. It hasn't happened yet. Parts of it have, the rest of it hasn't. Satan is not bound to the earth. He's not cast down to the earth until that event, midway through the tribulation period. That's when the Antichrist actually becomes the Antichrist, right? So he is not bound to the earth yet. He still has a role. I think he is the accuser of the brethren. I do think that the Satan from the book of Job is the great Satan. He's not necessarily presented that way because that's unimportant to the story, right? There are things that develop. We have to understand we are, there's other connotations and context to these books that we don't really see because they weren't kept as part of canon, but they were part of the corpus of thought, right? And we also have to remember that when we talk about rabbinic traditions and thoughts today, it's still within 2,000. It still has 2,000 years of development in a Christian era, right? So some thought, some beliefs in rabbinic studies are also designed to be in conflict with Christianity. It just is. There'll be a lot of rabbinic scholars who would say, no, that's not the case. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it is. That's a very long conversation, but it's very evident that that's the case. So the thing is, when we see Satan, just working from the assumption that the Satan of the book of Job is the devil of the New Testament, he's not bound to earth. He is simply moving amongst the earth in order to find humans to bring to God, to accuse them, because that's the only way God or Satan has of hurting God, right? Is afflicting his creations. So again, Satan is not bound to earth. Not yet. He's bound at the end. I would even argue that the fall of Satan is recorded. It's in Genesis 2. It is, because I think the serpent in the garden, we have to remember, it's a triple entendre in Hebrew. It's not just snake. It actually means burning one or glistening one or shining one. It means deceiver, to intertwine. The fact that the serpent is talking is meant for us to understand, hey, this isn't a snake. The snake is an image to let us know what's happening, that this is the devil and that he is coming. Again, that's why Revelation connects everything, right? He connects the devil with, the devil from Revelation, the seven-headed dragon. That's the seven-headed Leviathan that is found in Isaiah and connects to the serpent in the Garden of Eden. We have to remember, it's one big literary context. So that is his fall. Now, you could argue that he's more or less bound, in quotation marks, to earth because of his sin. Possible. But I think he's focusing on humanity because he hates humans because of God. Is there a connection between, the Watchers and all that? I would argue that the devil that Jesus confronts in the wilderness is it, if it isn't directly Azazel, he is meant to invoke the idea of Azazel. That's why he was there, right? There is a really good argument that Azazel is Satan. There just is. And there's a lot of Second Temple period literature indicating the idea that Azazel is the devil. I don't think he is the devil, though. Not really. But he is, in the same way that there are multiple antichrists, I think there's multiple Satans or devils, each one sort of fulfilling that role. So when Jesus goes to be tempted in the desert, is it Satan? Yes. Is it, however, actually physically the devil, right, that we see in Revelation? Or is it Azazel acting on Satan's behalf? Or is it Azazel? These are all valid questions. I would argue that at the very least, if Azazel is not arguing for the devil, right, then the devil is there because Azazel is there, right? Azazel is at the very least, again, just as everything is a type and shadow of Christ, the devils, all of these things are types and shadows of Satan as well. What happens with Satan, right? He's bound for 1,000 years, cast into the abyss. He's chained and cast into the abyss. Well, what's Azazel? He's the watcher who taught mankind violence and warfare, and he's bound alone in the desert. And he's chained in the desert, and all sin is when the Hebrew people, right, when they would do the scapegoat, they would put all the sin of Israel on the scapegoat and send it out to the wilderness. That was the goat for Azazel. That's what they were doing. They were saying all of the sin that Israel as a nation had committed that year was put on the scapegoat and sent to Azazel to be put on him. That was the idea. That's what's happening. He is at the very least a type and shadow of Satan. And so that's why, I would argue that absolutely he is there. He is, the entire reason that he was in the desert in that place was because that's where Azazel was. That's where the confrontation was. Now, whether Azazel is the Satan that he spoke with, or if Azazel is the devil, those are conversations to have. But those are intimately connected. And yes, we said, I see what you're saying, right? When Jesus says, "I saw Satan fall like lightning." Here's the thing on that. That's an interesting conversation to have. All conversations are, well, not all conversations are interesting, but this one is. Anything with the Bible is basically an interesting conversation, in my opinion, but I'm a nerd. There's actually numerous ways to look at that, right? A lot of people think, oh, what he's saying is because of what they did, Satan fell and now he's bound to the earth. That's not necessarily what he's saying in that context, right? He could be saying he saw the powers of Satan. Like, he's not saying he was cast out of heaven and fell to the earth at that time or at that event. He is using it poetically, saying, hey, while you were out there, I saw the power of Satan fall. I saw what he was doing collapse. And so that's more of a better inference as to what's being said. He's not meaning it literally. He's meaning it poetically. In the same way where it's like, my mouth to God's ears. If when we see Joe Biden, hopefully, please, Heavenly Father, lose in the next election, or if we're asking, be sent and hauled off to prison, we could say, I saw him fall. Like, you could say, literally, I saw him fall like lightning, like from the sky. I'm not meaning he literally fell. I'm saying I've seen the collapse of his I've seen the collapse of his influence. I've seen the collapse of his material. It's sort of the same idea. Others have even said, though, that when he's saying it, Jesus is also, he's not meaning that it happened then. He's saying prophetically that he is prophetically speaking that your actions, what you, the apostles, have done, what you, my disciples, have done in my name, and therefore what you are going to be doing in the future, because of your actions, I've already seen it happen. It could be meant prophetically for what it does occur in Revelation 12. That's a second option. Third option is that it is um he's saying that he is the one who witnessed the fall of Satan. So there's three main lines of thought on this. One, that he means it poetically. I mean, still it's a reality, but it's a poetic meaning. Second is it's a prophetic meaning. Third is that it's a remembrance of that time. I kind of will argue it's all three, right? I think this is one of those things we as Christians don't take seriously enough, is the idea that some of this is all of the above. It just is, right? It's and he could be meaning it poetically and still prophetically at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other, because particularly when you look at it from a poetic meaning, it's the desire is to have a broader understanding. It is to be used multiple ways. Look at how we're going through Hebrew. Hey, Image 1953. Look at what happens in Hebrews, right? We have all these Old Testament references that and prophecies that you kind of look at it. It's like, well, it doesn't seem at first glance, it doesn't necessarily make sense the way it would be used in the New Testament in the book of Hebrews. In fact, there are some scriptures that don't immediately make sense, that they're used in the New Testament. But when you understand, because we are overly literal, but from a poetic sense, it makes perfect sense, right? It is these are poetic implications, and so it's like, oh, I get what they're saying, right? There is how they're using it, and it's different from how we think. So the thing is, a line can be interpreted in numerous ways, and it's designed to be read multiple ways depending on the context and connotation that you're using, right? So there isn't just one answer. There can usually be numerous answers. It just depends on the way something is tackled. It seems it seems completely unconnected, but give me a second, I'll make it work, right? I was watching something and on the modern education system in America, and how it was basically designed to create factory workers. That's even the grades, right? Grade A, B, C, D, F. Those were all grades of products back in the day. That's where it came from, right? And think about it. Okay, so Image 1953, real quick. I had to change the time today and today only because of circumstances beyond my control. So this is just a one-time thing. That's why we're not doing Hebrews, because I don't want to. If I have to change the time because something happens on my end, I don't want that to be a thing. So this is just a one-time thing. However, I will be out the next 2 Sundays because of the Oregon Bigfoot Festival and some other things that are going on. So next Saturday, we're going to do Hebrews, but I'm going to try and wrap it up that day. Can't promise we will, but we're going to do like a nice long 2-hour thing. Hangout on Saturday. I'll give you plenty of warning on that. Yeah, no, unfortunately, this is just a today thing, and it's my bad. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get out of it. So yeah, our school system is not really designed to make you think. Not anymore. Hasn't been for a long time, right? But the other thought was and that's sort of the context to the next statement. And someone in the video was talking about how our schools aren't even at the best of time. They're in the best of cases. They are not teaching you really to think for yourself. They are teaching you to be very limited in our scope of thought, right? It was designed to make you think there's only one answer. There's only one right way to do something. Because that's a factory worker's mentality, right? I need to make this pen. There is one prescribed way to do the pen. I have one way to do that job because I'm a factory worker, right? My job is to take this cap and put it on this pen. I can't do it this way. I can't do it this way. I have to do it that way. And I have to lay it on the conveyor belt in a particular way so that it does, so it can go to the next person who does his job, and on and on and on. That is the mentality of our school system. And really, it's the mentality of American thought today. So we're not used to looking at, and it hurts us when we go to the Bible, because we have to realize the Bible was designed to be read in various perspectives. And so again, the question of, well, when Jesus says he saw, Satan fall like lightning, is that does he mean that literally? Does he mean that figuratively? Does he mean it prophetically? Is he remembering something? Yes. Yes, he means it. It is because here's the thing: something can be literal and poetic at the same time, particularly when you're talking about the supernatural, right? And here's the thing: things can be prophetic and poetic at the same time. We have to understand this, that the Bible is, that doesn't mean we can't understand what the Bible is saying. It just means we have to understand that it's designed purposefully to be seen and read in a broader context, because we have to understand the Bible is God talking to us. His perspective is higher. Again, let's go back to his perspective is so much higher than ours that it is foolish to think we could actually understand how he perceives time and space and what his plans are. He is trying to get, the Holy Spirit speaks to God with utterances that are beyond words, right? It talks about groanings that human language can't even entail. He is trying to convey that understanding to us. He's growing us as a species at the same time. We're designed to read things, the Bible, differently. I'll see if I can find the original image. Jordan Peterson there's an image he has, he put up on during a speech, and it shows all of the references to itself within the Bible, and sort of metaphorically, he calls it the first hyperlinked text. And he means, again, that's a metaphor, but it's a good idea. It's a great way of saying it, and it's a beautiful image. It's unbelievably beautiful the way that they've shown the references of the Bible, right? But the reason that it keeps cross-referencing itself is to allow us to understand, hey, the reason it's so deep and solves all of our problems is because it's designed to be read at a deeper meaning. Because he uses the points, like you see all of these connections. Well, the thing is, each separate connection from one verse to another verse, right? Even if you have 100 verses over here referencing this one verse here, you can take each reference point and travel that line. You can do that, and you get different meanings, different interpretations, different goals and agendas in the verses that are being referenced. So what you have is one verse here meaning 100 different things later. It doesn't mean that one's superior to the other. It just means, hey, there's all these ways to look at it. And in traveling those paths, it's an infinite, it sort of becomes its own infinite loop, because it changes also how you view the original. Here's a great example. Since I mentioned it already, it's already fresh in your mind. Isaiah. We've already talked about the Isaiah, on the Syria papers, right? We talked about Leviathan being a metaphor for both Satan and Tiamat in the book of Isaiah, right? Well, here's the thing. Because Tiamat and Lotan are the same thing, right? And the Hebrews understood this. It has 7 heads. Lotan has 7 heads. I think Tiamat did too, but I know Lotan, off the top of my head, had 7 heads. That's how he's depicted. Okay. But again, why connect him to Tiamat? because Tiamat's the glistening one, and remember the shining one or the glistening one. That's how you can. That's also one of the names that you can get out of the triple entendre. That is the Satan from the Garden of Eden. You're meant to make that connection. Lisa, you don't have to apologize. I went early because the situation is beyond my control, so you can go back and rewatch this later. I'm glad you're here. We love it. I will not be here the next 2 Sundays. I've already gone over that, so you'll when you go back and rewatch, you'll hear it. But we will be doing something special next Saturday. I'm going to post it early, so y'all will have plenty of forewarning on it. But so the 7-headed Leviathan, that's also a stand-in for Satan in Isaiah, is connected to, again, the serpent in the garden, but it also directly connects to the 7-headed dragon we see in Revelation. That is not a coincidence. It's the same thing. We're meant to see it as the same thing. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The 7-headed dragon in Revelation is not just Satan. It is a representation of Satan. It's also these 7 empires run by 7 specific empires. They go from, I would argue, Nimrod to the Antichrist. It's the 7 nations run by the Antichrist throughout time. So it's not just Satan as a being, it's Satan as a political entity, which kind of changes the context retroactively of what we see with Isaiah and what we see with the Garden of Eden, right? Because even though the context of there being a political transaction happening in the Garden of Eden is clearly there, it reinforces the idea that what happens in the Garden of Eden is a political usurpation of our authority and therefore also God's authority, because it was the one given to us. The destruction of Leviathan in Isaiah, that again is prophetic of Satan. Well, Tiamat, her body was cut up to make the land, right? Hold on. You know what? Let me read that section because unfortunately I just got through reading that one and Psalms and I keep forgetting which one's which. So let me do my share screen thing here. And y'all can watch me go through that. There we go, blueletterbible.com, and got to move my thing over here, my keyboard. Hold on. I can just type in Leviathan, that should be fine. And let's use the ESV. Job, Psalm, Isaiah. Here we are. Okay, Isaiah 27:1. In that day, the Lord with his hard and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, the twisting serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is the sea. In that day, it doesn't go into that much detail. Okay, so hold on. This is where we have to get crazy. Hold on. It's probably going to be Tiamat. All right. The primordial sea, for which the gods, she's also the main adversary of Marduk. Hold on. We'll go to Wikipedia on this one just to be safe. She also works with murders. Sea dragon. She then is slain by Enki's son. Marduk, not before she's brought forth monsters. Okay, that's right. So yeah, Marduk. Okay, because Marduk, yeah, he forms the heavens and the earth from Tiamat's body. Okay, because again, one version the body is cut up and fed to the wild animals. That's the Psalms version, because that's Lotan, and then Tiamat. I thought Tiamat was used to make the earth and heavens. So, how does this change the connotation of the Revelation's dragon? Well, now that we know in Revelation 12, it's not just Satan, but rather also his political functions and his political power on earth, those nation states. with him being killed, or metaphorically destroyed, this dragon being slain in Isaiah implies that God's new kingdom comes out of his millennial kingdom comes out of the destruction of the seven-headed dragon. So it's one of those things where, yeah, things that happen are meant to go back and go, oh, okay, hold on. They're giving us new information here. We need to go back and look at what's happening here. So the seven-headed dragon, Leviathan, Satan, is not just a being. He's also a political figure. He's a political entity. As a nation, that's how we should view him. And it's an empire unto itself. And that empire, upon what's being destroyed, is what is used to make the new one, the millennial kingdom. So again, it's sort of reading the text from a poetic sense, understanding that there's multiple pathways through the text, and in traveling that journey, you come to different realizations, because it's intended. The things that happen at the end are designed to change how you think about the beginning, and the things from the beginning tell you what the thing is at the end. So it's this constant back and forth that allows us to expand our understanding. That's how it's meant to be read. Not just one answer, but hundreds of answers that give us a fuller understanding of what we're dealing with, because what we're dealing with the supernatural, God, Satan, angels, is beyond our normal context. Like, the pen's a pen, right? It's a pen. I can draw with it. I can stab somebody with it. I can do a lot of things with a pen, but it's always just a pen. But Satan, sometimes, he's a being, but he's also his political influence over the world. He's the usurped authority that we have. He's all of these things. He's negative thoughts. He is sin. He's all of the things, right? So it's meant to be read that way. So one last time, as we come to an end, Lisa, yes, Lisa, we will definitely pray that you find a new place to live. I'm glad you sold your house. Let me scroll up here just to make certain. Oh, you rent. Oh, I'm sorry. You rent and it's been sold. I'm sorry to hear that. That's ouch. I'm sorry to hear that. We will definitely pray that you find a new place to live, because that's that's not cool. I've been there. I think all of us have in one way or another. But so again, just as a one last time kind of a thing. So again, situations beyond my control. I had to do today a little early. If we still, if Danielle has a show, I should be on there. But again, situations beyond my control. I will not be able to do a show on Sunday, or this coming Sunday. So we're going to do something on Saturday, like a special 2-hour hangout. But we're going to also try and do all of, see if we can't wrap up Hebrews, get a little forward momentum going. And then the following Sunday, I also will not be here because I will be in Oregon. Actually, I'll be returning from Oregon at that time. And so obviously I can't do anything that Saturday because I'll be in Oregon doing the festival, the Bigfoot Festival there, speaking and doing things. Also, I still have to be vague at this point because some things aren't yet set in stone. So I can't make a public announcement, but there are going to be some changes coming, not to this channel per se. This channel right now is what it is, and it should stay that way for the foreseeable future. If I end up moving the time again, I will do like I'll give you all some options. But again, that what's happening should not affect this channel at all. It will affect Sewer Papers. It will affect Texas Front Porch, but it will be good. Everyone's on board. Trust me, y'all will like what's going to happen. I can't really say how Sewer Papers will change, but it will change. I just have some things that again, I have some things to put together, so there should be an announcement coming probably honestly in October. I probably the end of this month, but early August, definitely we will have everything sort of squared away so I can make those kinds of announcements. So appreciate your prayers on that, because some things are changing, all for the better, all for the better. So on that note, I'm going to let y'all get back to your Sunday. I appreciate y'all. Oh, Lisa, yes, your 1 year heart attack anniversary. Yes, thank you for reminding us. That is so glad that you're still here, and we are glad that you're here with us. I mean, it's hard to believe it's only been a year. Everything's moved so fast. It just seems like it's getting faster. So again, we're glad that you're still with us. So congratulations. I mean, and people often don't take the time to realize, hey, when you come, when you have a big, health emergency like that, it's like hanging, that can be that's a real thing to overcome for a lot of people. And it is, you should be very proud, that you're here, that you're doing what you're doing. That's a big accomplishment. And we're really glad that you're here. We are. MH1953 says it perfectly. You are a bright spot for our gatherings together. We really appreciate you. We really do. I'm gonna let y'all get back to your Sundays. Again, next Saturday we're gonna do something big. Wrap up Hebrews, and let's just be praying for one another. Again, guys, I don't know what's coming in August. I mean, our announcements, I kind of have those almost situated. But what I mean is, August and September for the rest of the world, man, it's going to get ugly. It just is. We got to be prepared. We got to be in prayer, and let's be the salt and the light that we're called to be. All right, it's going to get ugly, but this is the time when we shine the best and shine the brightest, is when we can speak truth, when we can speak boldly. The world, we are, as I've said hundreds of times probably at this point, we are in the separation of the tares and the wheat. It's okay that people are going to go astray. It's a terrible thing, but that's what's going to happen. Our job is to make certain we get all the wheat that we can. So as bad as things get, understand that is just to help us to sort through the wheat and the tares. That's all it is. Let's speak boldly. Let's speak in love. Let's speak in wisdom. Let's speak with the Holy Spirit. See y'all later.